So far as growth and development of society and country is concerned, Ahmedabad has always been at the forefront. Be it an educational institution or research institution, music academy or social organization or management institution, our beloved city has everything in its kitty. Many visionaries have burned their midnight oil and have contributed immensely in creating a rich institutional landscape of the city. Today we are going to celebrate the journey of one such visionary leader who has been a pioneer in carving the path of institutional existence of Ahmedabad. None other than our very own Mr. Prafull Anubhai. With the aim of sharing his vast experience in this field, he has come up with an idea of writing an insightful book. This book will act as a guiding force and Bible to the next generation of management and establishers, entrepreneurs and educationalists, and one and all related to this management domain. The title of the book is Institutions, Values and Life Lessons, Musings of Serendipitous Witness. And without taking much of our time, I would like to request all the dignitaries, along with Prafull Bhai, to come forward to stand up at your place and officially release the book. As I mentioned earlier, this book is a Bible to those who are interested in developing new institutions and organizations. During the span of more than 60 years of his working life, Mr. Prafull Bhai has contributed remarkably in building rich institutional landscape of the city. To talk about his journey, I would request our dignitary, our guest of honor, Mr. Sanjay Lalbhai, to come on the podium and share his views and thoughts about Prafull Bhai's journey, his work and his experience.
Good morning, friends. Prafull Bhai and all the friends on the dais. Good morning to you, welcome. I think Prafull Bhai is the only person who's worked for 4 generations in our family, starting with Sanjay Lalbhai, then closely working with Director Lalbhai, then of course me, and now Puneet and Puneet. So I think I can't think of anyone who's so actively worked with our family through 4 generations. So this is the first unique association that we are very proud of. Prafull Bhai, I think I must thank you that I always wonder as to where do you find the time, energy and effort to do so many things at the same time. I mean, writing down 60 years of history is no mean achievement, and we will always remain grateful, thankful for penning down so much of wisdom, so much of experience, so much of association with institutions which have made a difference. I think, if we really look at the impact of these institutions, spanning from IMA to NID to various institutions you've been associated with. Now, of course, you founded Ahmedabad University and I think Nilakani told us in one gathering that I was always wondering that how can you be useful to the society? So in that meeting he said that the only way to, if you want to make a maximum impact, it is the public policy and being with the government. So it had never occurred to me that how true it is. If you want to change the world, if you want to really help all of India, it is through public policy. And look what it did. It digitized all of India. And today we are so proud. And I think everything which we are able to do or the government is able to do is through that effort of one individual. And the kind of impact he has made, I think it can make us all proud. And it is one of the most sophisticated, efficient and cost-efficient digital rollout in the world. So we are very proud of the kind of initiative great individuals take. My grandfather told me that the second biggest thing you can do is educate people. Correct? If you empower people with knowledge, so instead of helping him with some kind of charity, if you empower him with knowledge, generations and their family will come out of poverty. And you will, educated individual makes dramatic impact to the society. And we have seen as to what these youngsters have done from IMA, NID, IITs, and of course now all the universities which where we are associated in some way. But I think it is making a huge difference. If we really see the kind of impact the School of Pharmacy has made, correct, to this country, I mean the entire pharmaceutical industry, if we can say one of the largest contribution is because of the training which was, or the knowledge or the education which it provided to number of leaders who built multi-billion-dollar empires or companies in pharmaceuticals industry. If we really see the impact of School of Architecture, I think I can't think of any architect who would be not graduating through CEPT and who's achieved prominence. And it's a global prominence. It's not a prominence, I think we are changing the kind of landscape of the world, and the amount of support it is giving to infrastructure, town planning is immense. So these institutions and its impact is multifold. And if we can see in Prafull Bhai's life, I think, and in this book, what he's been telling us is his association with all these institutions, correct? And I think, I don't remember because I'm quite junior to him, but when I joined Arvind, I started looking at textiles, and in one of the forums, I knew him because he was on our boards. I mean, we had 7 textile publicly listed companies. And in one of the so I knew him, but I had not heard him because our board meetings ended in 5-10 minutes. So when in one of the planning commission meetings, Abid Hussain, so he suddenly took interest in textiles, and we were asked to present kind of a paper, a strategic paper on what can be done with textile industry. And that is the time I saw Prafull Bhai's strategic vision, the kind of work he had done about textile industry, and the points he presented. Very crisp, very clear, and very articulated. And I learned a lot from that, because I had seen meetings where people talked about what government can do for them. There was never a road plan or roadmap of stating as to what can you do or what India should do with this industry. Now that's a completely different perspective. Going and asking for things for yourself. Suppose you are doing spinning or weaving or processing, and you are telling the government that we need this, we need this, we need this. Instead of that, when you go and present a roadmap where you are showing as to what can be done with this industry, and that is Prafull Bhai. The vision, the clarity, the strategic intent, and the persuasion. Correct? He will never take no for an answer, and he will be at you. You will avoid, I'll just tell you a funny thing. When we started Ahmedabad University and Prafull Bhai founded, it was the director or whatever designation, confused designations. So he was leading the institution, and whenever Prafull Bhai would go abroad and come back, he would come back with 10-15 ideas. And on one side I had constraints of financial prudence, because I have a strong board, which I am very thankful to, which keeps me also under control that you cannot do this, and there are boundaries set, very clear boundaries set. Prafull Bhai will come with 10 ideas. We want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this, we will do. So I'll always try and say, Prafull Bhai, once he has taken a foreign trip, I should avoid and give him more time to crystallize the financial impact. But he won't give up. And he will come and tell me this, and then I will of course hear it. All the ideas are great. Problem is the financial ability to execute them. But in one of his trips, he went and we signed up with Cambridge. And he signed up. I mean, he first one, and then he went to Stanford and the B School, and the venture studio came into existence. And Ahmedabad, being a heritage town, this is the only course, correct, being offered in heritage management. Now this is visionary. This is ahead of its time, correct? And these kind of ideas and structuring it and designing the pedagogy, getting the right people to come and teach, these are not small tasks, you know. And to get them done, to get it done well, is a remarkable kind of achievement. So I think, you know, these are some of the instances which are, I'm just sharing with you of my experience with Prafull Bhai. And I think this book basically is his entire kind of journey, his life journey, and his association with public institutions, private institutions, large companies, his entrepreneurial efforts, his he being on the boards of various companies, looking at governance and financial prudence, because he has been on these financial committees, he's been on building committees, he's been on all kinds of committees, correct? So the impact which it has made is immense. And I think you would be the largest serving member on the board of IIM. The longest. And I think it was the thread. If I have to contribute, or if I have to attribute, not contribute, attribute the kind of success of these institutions, right? There was a common thread. This rotational policy, and when there is no common thread, you lose the wisdom and the principles, the governance principles. Some way, you know, the boards change and suddenly people come in with different views and ideas, and you dilute the kind of essence of an institution. I think Ahmedabad has been very lucky that we have had people like Prafull Bhai, and who held the kind of, you know, the entire journey of these great institutions. So if I have to say that IIM is where it is, or NID is where it is because of these gentlemen, that they have been with these institutions, and they have held the governance, they have held to the vision, and they have not allowed it to get, you know, off the kind of course. So these are the reasons, and these are the gentlemen who've really shaped the future of, or they are shaping currently the future of Ahmedabad. If I have to talk about Bimal Bhai, I mean, the biggest practice in Ahmedabad and taking a sabbatical to come and work with SEPT. These are great personal sacrifices for public good. And this is what makes Ahmedabad great. And I think one of the shining individuals in this is Prafull Bhai and his 60 years of journey. And this book, I think people would be wise enough to learn from this and not start from scratch, because there is so much wisdom that you will get a tremendous head start if you really imbibe and understand what this book is telling you. So I really hope and wish that everyone and the younger generation takes full advantage of this book. Thank you, and wishing you all the best, good health, and many more tasks to be achieved in the future.
Thank you so much, Sanjay Bhai. Prafull Bhai has taken the narrative format for this book. He has narrated his experiences throughout his journey. Musings blended historical accounts with commentary, followed by reflections, and from these emerged lessons in institution building and life. His motive is to share these lessons not as descriptions, not in a preachy way, but as reflections on what unfolded and how he responded to each and every situation and challenge. Our next speaker and guest, I would request Mr. Pankaj Chandra to come on the podium and share his experiences and his views on this book. So please.
Well, good morning, everyone. And Prafull Bhai, first and foremost, congratulations for this wonderful book that we have in front of us. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book. Sanjay Bhai has talked about Prafull Bhai and the two institutions that I'm a little bit familiar with and where Prafull Bhai was part of. And there was one line in this book that struck me, and it says, he says to create, and this is his quoting Ravi Mathai from IMA, where Prafull Bhai says, to create an institution is an act of faith. And he says, my stance is that of witness, almost like a common man in R.K. Lakshman's cartoons, watching, engaging, and reflecting. Thank you very much for this amazing reflection. My first interaction with Prafull Bhai happened when I came to IMA in early 90s. And the then director, Professor Khandwala, created a very unique institution that existed at IMA called Committee for Future Directions. Earlier, but I became part of it. We were on the same committee, and you could see how large vision and action could come together. Then I became part of the board of management at Ahmedabad University very early on, and I kept in touch when I was in Bangalore. And it was his nudge a little bit that made me come in a very frightful way in some ways. I didn't express that, to follow in his shoes. And it has been such a pleasure to be getting Prafull Bhai's support and perspective all this 10 years that I've been there. I've always wondered, and after reading this book it became even more clear. Always wondered, where does wisdom and sagacity come from? And of course, some of it comes from goodness, but some of it also comes, as I could see from the book, from a function which is a function of unusual experiences. Very diverse set of experiences. In the book, he talks about the story of his family, his mills, the struggles, his engagement not only with the textile sector but also with the finance industry, being part of many starting institutions, both of the government and in the private. And I think it tells us that you get invited, if you're special, to participate in these ventures. Not everybody gets an opportunity to go through such diverse experiences in one's life. And Prafull Bhai, you are one of those. You're flexible, but you always held to very intrinsic values that were close to you. I also read in the book about leadership, where leadership was always a service and support. And when you are done, you just move on. And that's a very amazing, and it comes chapter after chapter in experiences of Prafull Bhai, that you do things because you believe in the purpose, you believe in the cause, you put your best, and then you move on. And I think that's a great lesson to learn from. I also found in the book a sense of professionalism. That professionalism was so much about the power of neutrality. See things in a balance. So many organizations ask you on the boards to chair. They must have seen certain perspective in your thinking, which was balanced to bring you on there. And then finally, I'm very impressed by the work, because we were associated a little bit at the end of this project, which was Madhyam Gujarati Uttam Angrezi. This project to teach English in government schools through the vernacular language. And I think that is very unusual. I also want to talk a little bit about the two institutions that I've been associated with, and Prafull, by you. You've been, you built one, and you're almost part of it for very long periods of time for another one. Your writing about I'm Ahmedabad as a PPP is really unusual. How did the government of India, government of Gujarat, and industrialists from Ahmedabad who came together to bring this institution to Ahmedabad when it had already left for Bombay? But more interesting is the conversation in the book as to how and where do the challenges of this PPP also lie. That on one hand, it shows the strength of the larger community, which essentially makes sure that an institution, the society wraps its arm around the institution, where the town and the gown come together in a very interesting way. But there have been many instances in the book from IMA where this PPP also clashed. It also told another story, that institutions and institution building is so much about bringing together conflicts of various kinds and resolving them in a manner to move the institution forward. And I think that's what happened at IM, both when it came to the issue of the fees or of the corpus and many other situations that you talk about. And last about it, Prafull Bhai talks in that chapter on IMA as a collective dedication to principles. And I thought this was very powerful for many of us who are still working in institutions, that how do you bring people together, very diverse people who've had very diverse experiences, to believe in a common cause. Not very easy. And it's always a struggle, and I guess it's a continuing effort over a long period of time. It never gets tied together very easily. Your participation with CEPT, with NID, and then with institutions like Atira, Saptak, I think are just absolutely amazing. And I must first and foremost thank you from the day I landed at IM for having received passes or something. This is absolutely such a pleasure. It was a treasure, and still continues to be that, not only for me but also for all of us at Ahmedabad University. Last, your baby, Ahmedabad University, which you put together as a multidisciplinary institution. And I think this is very different from the professional institutions that CEPT, NIT, and IM were. This is an institution where the cultures are very different, because the type of people who come from very different walks of life, from sciences to humanities to social science to engineering to management. And I think imagining an institution of that kind is a very courageous task that I think you, Sanjay Bhai, and many others in this room really undertook. And to bring education at local cost and context. Though we don't carry the tagline, but in spirit we continue to believe in that statement very, very strongly. For many who may not know, but Prafull Bhai at Ahmedabad University, other than thinking about very interesting program that Sanjay Bhai talked about, which is Center for Heritage Management, also brought in a very interesting perspective on experiential learning. I guess your experience of case method of doing orientation at IMA, at CEPT and ID, I think was responsible probably for thinking about how does engineering education become very hands-on and move away from being engineering science alone. And with that came a very amazing partnership with Olin College of Engineering. Olin is, for many who don't know, probably one of the best undergraduate engineering colleges in the US, even ranked ahead of Stanford and MIT's engineering school. And for simple reason that they're very small, but at the same time they're very hands-on. Everything is doing oriented and very interdisciplinary. And Ahmedabad University was the only partner in Asia, and we benefit tremendously from that partnership subsequently to spread that kind of thinking not only in engineering but across the university. And I think that is a very amazing initiative that got put together. I also like one other line in your book which says, when you're putting Ahmedabad University together, he said, our task was nothing less than making the elephant dance. And I thought this is so apt for a university which actually is so starchy, pulls people in every which direction, but at the same point of time wants to move by educating young people and creating the future of a nation very, very differently. There's a lot of stuff in here from how organizations should plan, should execute, should think, and I think which is very valuable for all of us here at the university and outside. And last, I think I'm just going to reiterate what the book says, that the institution building is about creating lasting entities. Values help sustain these institutions. They in turn create life lessons for those involved. Congratulations for putting this book together for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pankaj Bhai, for sharing your valuable experiences. An act of creating institutions and building organization is a human activity. And human activity arises out of 4 H's. H, the heart that ignites emotions, the head that propels reason, the hands that steer pursuits, and He, the Almighty, who blesses. These are the rooted belief of Prafull Bhai, and throughout this book he has talked about values and these beliefs and weaved his entire journey in a beautiful manner. I would request the former Director of National Institute of Design, Mr. Ashok Chatterjee, to come on the podium and share his experiences with Prafull Bhai. Ashok Bhai is always the chairman of Advisory Board of Center for Heritage Management, Ahmedabad University. I would request Ashokji to come and share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Prafull Bhai. Not just congratulations, but deep thanks. I think it's wonderful to be here on this occasion in a campus and in an institution that was set up by the Ahmedabad Education Society. There's a lot about the Ahmedabad Education Society in this book, but what has struck me in the reading the book and discussing parts of it with Prafull while it was being put together, is this word which is on the cover, which is values. And I have, in our conversations with Prafull over these year or more that we've been talking about this book, and surrounded as we are by the disappearance of values, the attacks on values, the shredding of values, I kept wondering where his optimism comes from. Because half the time we were talking about values that seem to be thrown into the waste basket so easily these days. And I think it came, when the book tells us this, from one non-negotiable factor of Prafull's career, which is being to hang on to certain basic values and principles, and to use that as the markdown, the benchmark for understanding and for moving forward in very, very difficult situations. What is remarkable about this book is it's not a collection of success stories. There are all kinds of failures in this book, and that's where the power of the book comes from. The ability to so-called fail and pick oneself up and move ahead, and somehow not to lose hope. It's been mentioned earlier today that perhaps this should be a Bible for people to read. And maybe on a Sunday it's not a bad idea to remember the Bible, because the Bible tells us, in one of its most profound observations, that at the end of the day, there are just three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. And all these three things are so much in this. Ravi Matthias recalled as saying that to build an institution is an act of faith, which means that you have no guarantees of what will succeed, what may not succeed, but you go ahead anyway. Kiran Karnik, in his comment, has talked about hope, and that this book gives us hope. I think that's a profound observation, because God knows if there's anything that we need today, it's that sense of hope. But there's also, between the lines, between every experience, a profound sense of love that infuses this book. And why do I say that? Because love is the ability to see the world through somebody else's eyes. And that is one of Prafull Bhai's profound traits. The book is full of his engagement with major institutions, including the one that welcomes us here today. But Prafull Bhai's insights and his wisdom have been available to institutions, large and small, and to individuals in high places and in other places. And I think this is really a profound example of a mentor who never has come in with answers, but always with approaches, and always is returned to what is really at stake, what values are affected, what principles are at work. And the book also tells you how easily and how quickly those principles can be shredded. And yet, Prafull tells us we have to go on. And I think that's the biggest lesson of this book. That it isn't an easy journey for anyone, but you have to persist. And the only way you can persist is to have that faith in the principles and the values that are mentioned on the cover of this book. There are so many instances that one can talk about. He ends his book with a chapter which I think is an extraordinary heading. It says, making sense of complex pathways on institutions. And making sense is so difficult these days. One hopes that this book will be read. One is told these days that people don't read. So we have to find ways to ensure that, particularly on campuses that are not only discussed in this book, but are affected by this book, that the learnings from this book will be absorbed, discussed. And what I think also needs to be flagged in this book is the large number of very difficult decisions that Prafull Anubhai made during his career, including the one at the institution that I was associated with, and how deeply, reflectively he made those decisions, and how correct those decisions were. And also, regrettably, how easy his example could be dismissed. And to me, this is the most important lesson, that in this world of so much conflict and contradiction, how do you find the stamina to hold the ground and to move ahead? And the book is full of inspiration because it tells us of difficulties that he's faced, of the whole range of issues, hostility, failures in business, the whole wisdom of learning to negotiate and to find the middle path in difficult circumstances. There's so much richness in this book that one certainly hopes that it will be widely circulated, widely read, hopefully translated, because it has lessons that go well beyond just one language and one community, and hopefully outside this country. I had been sent the cover of this book, and I shared it with a friend in the US, and he said, wrote back to me on an email last night saying, institutional values and life lessons, Ashok, really? You should send this book immediately into the Oval Office. But then he said, no, sorry, I don't think anybody reads there. So there's a huge amount of wisdom here, and I only can say that one thing that really is uppermost in several of our minds these days is this whole question of campuses and activism. I don't want to digress into a situation on the campus not far from us, but it struck me that all his life, Prafull Anubhai has been an activist. It's never been a choice for him. He was always active. Always active. Activism in the best sense of the term. And this book, to my mind, indicates, particularly in academic institutions, what activism should really mean. And that brings me back to this thought of why it's important that we are here in this building, in this campus, and in the culture of the Ahmedabad Education Society. Because for me, this book is almost a primer in the culture of trusteeship. And that's the culture that has created these great institutions. That is the culture that is endangered by so much that is happening around us. And that is the culture that needs to survive. Because that is the culture that tests everything, every decision, every investment, every act, by what we are holding in trust for the next generation. And to my mind, that's the greatest contribution that Prafull Anubhai has made. His vision, and the vision that is imparted to many of us who have learned from him, has always been who are you holding this for? Who will benefit from the decisions that you are taking? It's not you, it's another generation. And remember that. And this is, to my mind, the great lesson and the great example that Ravi Mathai set, that the Ahmedabad Education Society set. I know it was a great lesson I learned in a 10-minute introduction to Ahmedabad, which was given to me by Sanjay Lalbhai soon after I arrived. It was such an extraordinary lecture that when I went out of it, after that, I rang up Ravi Mathai and said, "My God, you know what I've just been told?" Ravi Mathai said, "Well, that's exactly what trusteeship is all about. What he said to you was what you need to keep in mind. That is what has made Ahmedabad what it is." So thank you, and I do hope that your words will be remembered, absorbed, and inspire many other generations to come. Thank you.
Many dignitaries and many experts from different walks of life have sent their messages for this book. I would like to read out one message from Nimesh Kampaniji, the chairman of JM Financial Group. A deeply reflective and experience-rich account, offering rare insights into leadership, institution building, and the complex dynamics of power. This will resonate with anyone involved in leadership and institution building, as it offers a mirror to introspect and grow. On this note, I would like to invite our last speaker and guest, Shri Bimal Patel, to come on the podium and share his experiences and thoughts on the book. Well-known architect, the master planner of Ahmedabad Education Society, and former director of SET. Bimal.
First of all, Professor, sorry to all of you for being late. It breaks a very important tradition of Ahmedabad of always being on time. I was deeply embarrassed that I was late. Sorry for making all of you wait. Thank you, Professor, for inviting me here. I didn't know I was going to be sitting here, and I just thought it's going to be some informal function. Thank you for asking me to talk. But most of all, thank you for writing this wonderful book. It's an inspiring account of a life lived well, lived with measured enjoyments, content, very, very active. It's a reflective life too. Quiet determination, with very strong purpose, and an inspiring account of how contributions to public institutions can enrich one's life. It's a story of also, as others have said, of how Ahmedabad is enriched by thoughtful citizens who feel a sense of responsibility towards their society and are willing to contribute, put in the hard work. There are many people in Ahmedabad like this, and Prafull Anubhai, of course, is one of its great examples. I've had the honor and joy of having engaged with Prafull Anubhai for, well, almost ever since I started working in my professional career, since the mid-90s. We've worked on all sorts of things together. I'll share a few of the things that we've done together. I think probably perhaps the first time that we met and we interacted was in the mid-90s. This was the time at which Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation was being revived, rejuvenated. Ahmedabad was coming back to life after, or at least the Municipal Corporation, after a long period of stagnation. And I think it was through AMA that we got to know each other. And Prafull Anubhai sought me out. I was already working on the riverfront project, and so I had connection with the Municipal Corporation. And he had this idea, if I remember correctly, he had a civic center established at AMA, and he said, these new corporators are coming into the Municipal Corporation. Perhaps we can hold some sort of training sessions to improve their management capacities and do something. So, Bimal, can you help me set up a training program to the municipal corporation like that? He has all sorts of causes. And I said, let's see if this works. So I went off to Surendrabhai, who I was working with. Surendra, as all of you know, another great inspiring Ahmedabadi. And I said, Kaka, our program which I was corporators ne management skills sikhwada mate Prafull Anubhai program ka host. His first reaction was, "Ye logon ne kaso sikhwada hai." Was taken aback, you know. But after a bit of gentle persuasion, we managed to get that program going, and that was one of my earliest interactions with Prafull on working on some project together and doing something for the good of the city. So he had many such causes that he wanted to work for. Another thing that he was doing at AMA was to run a city monitor program. Pankaj was very much a part of that. And this would be, you know, monitoring the city, the citizens monitoring the city and putting it out. That didn't last very long, because as soon as something negative comes up, then there is a lot of problems with our government. So that didn't go down too well. But Prem Pangotra was the person who was monitoring activities in the municipal corporation. But you know, when the monitoring showed that things were going down, then problems started. So that was, I think our next interaction was with the IIM Ahmedabad. We were on the building committee. I was chosen to be the architect for the new campus. It was a sterling committee to work with. Prafull Bhai, Shrenik Bhai, Anil Bhai Bakeri. I worked 22 years with IIM overall, since I started at that time. And that was the best period, because here were people, and Prafull Bhai absolutely amongst them, who absolutely understood the power of architecture to support institutions, form their identities, and they were tough people to work with, but really supportive also. So Prafull Bhai's expansive vision of how institutions get formed, and even how architecture of institutions is important, was a treat. We worked many years together on that. I think the next time that I worked with, we worked on a lot of things, but the next wonderful memory is when he was trying to build a performance arts center. He said, we should see what performance arts centers are like. So I called up a couple of friends in Holland, and they organized a visit to 6 different types of performance spaces. One jazz performance space, orchestra, for a rock band, this, that, and the other, all of those. We went there to see them. And from there I had one small story, much like Sanjay Lalbhai's story. We went to all these different facilities, seeing them, looking at it, meeting people there. My friends had organized this wonderful visit. And we are at this, at Rotterdam Philharmonic or something like that. It's on the river, has a big cantilever. I've forgotten which place it was. And the director of that, the person who had got that facility built, was there explaining to us. And he told Prafull, forget these architects. What you must start with is the acoustic engineer. And you must start from there. From the inside, you must design outside. Heart sank. In any case, he then immediately latched on to that idea because it made sense. You have to think of the acoustics first. And we sought out an acoustic engineer, visited an acoustic engineer at his home. So he, Prafull goes into details, he doesn't stop. But one incident from that I remember, at this Philharmonic there was this huge elevator in which they take the grand piano from the truck. They bring grand pianos, deliver them there, take them up in that elevator to the theater, which the stage, which is at a higher level, and fantastic. He says, so then I got my turn. I turned to the director and I said, how much does that cost? And Prafull said, kitla rupiya no thai. So the guy turned around and said, so and so. He says, kitla? So I said, Prafull bhai, atla. And he said, "Ato apna akha building no budget se." So, like Sanjay bhai says, so this was another time that we met. Our most important interaction, of course, was through the years that I was leading SET. And after I'd spoken to Sanjay bhai about my interest in doing this work, Prafull bhai was the next person I spoke to. And he, from the very beginning, was absolutely encouraging and an absolutely important support. I couldn't have done anything that I managed to do at SET without his support. Because it was, I didn't know what task I was taking on. It was a great institution. Prafull bhai knew about it. He was on the board. It's a great institution, but was a little older, needed modernization, needed change. And, trying to modernize, change existing institutions with settled systems and settled interests is the most dangerous task. That is what Machiavelli says. The most dangerous thing you can try to do is to shift course of an institution that's already existing. As Machiavelli puts it, it's because 20% of the people are interested in the change, 20% of the people are not interested in the change, and 60% are going to see which side wins. So it's a thankless and difficult task. You just have to come out the other end, and if you succeed, you succeed. And those were difficult, really difficult times. And Prafull bhai, right through the 10 years, was my warmest, most supportive mentor and warmest person that I could go and speak with at difficult times. And I couldn't have done that without you, Prafull bhai. So you have contributed to institutions in a vast number of ways, and I'm personally thankful for being a part of my life since the mid-90s. Thank you very much for writing this book. Wonderful.
Thank you, Bimal Bhai, for your valuable thoughts and talk. During the span of more than 60 years of his working life, Prafull Bhai has contributed remarkably in building rich institutional landscape, we all know that, and he has played many avatars during his course of life: a business executive, an entrepreneur, an educationalist, a government functionary, a music aficionado, an institution builder. And I would now request Prafull Bhai to come on the stage and share his thoughts and his ideas about the book.
What happened a few days back has cast a grave shadow of tragedy on the whole country and more especially of Ahmedabad. It has been overwhelming. But as they say, time is the best healer. The only thing we can do is try and maintain a very equanimity for these people. These 65 years of working life I have spent on various institutions, various initiatives from diverse fields. So when I was writing this book, and this title came to my mind, and then there was this question of the subtitle. And I wanted to convey exactly how I was approaching it. there was a quiz around the word serendipitous. I was discussing with my friends. It's a heavy word. Yes, it is. But I was trying to find out as to how to convey exactly what happened to me throughout these years and how I moved from one assignment to another, one engagement to another. And let me tell you, and I mentioned it in the book itself, there was nothing planned about it. So I wanted to convey that it happened in an unplanned manner. And I was familiar with the word serendipity. I thought that I can use that word. Then I looked up and I found a very clear-cut explanation for this word. Chance encounters combined with human action is what serendipitous is all about. Chance encounters, it happens. And it is merged with human action, and then things begin to happen. That is how it. So that is the sense in this which I wanted to convey. And there was no other word I could think of which would convey this exactly what I had in mind. So I stuck to this serendipitous. Then there are two other words in the subtitle. I've said musings. There is no plan. There is no kind of structured approach to a problem. There is reflection, exploration. That is the sense. You go through life, you explore, you think about things, not always to arrive at a conclusion, not in a structured manner, but the mind sort of wanders, the mind connects various dots. And this is what is conveyed through these word musings. And finally, of a witness, serendipitous witness. So why witness? I have tried to look at all these happening in life with a neutral stance. Not always successful, I would not say so. Momentarily, yes, I would have some attachment to something or bias on something. But always asking myself this question and trying to be away from the situation in that sense. And the image which kept on coming to my mind was Arthur Lakshman's common man. He's always there. He doesn't speak a word. He watches. An accident takes place. There's a hole in the road. Someone throws things from the first floor. All this he's watching. That is the witness. That is the kind of stance that you want to develop. Then you see the reality. Then you understand the reality. So that is how this subtitle came up. And I did not meddle with it. So you can now appreciate what I'm trying to do through this book. I have been lucky also to have been put in a position where I work with all these people and all of you in one or the other way. Actually, if you ask me, directly or indirectly, every one of you has touched my life. I've learned. And I'm not speaking just out of modesty. I really mean it. I remember when I used to talk to the students of the Ahmedabad University, I used to tell them one thing. That all throughout my life, I felt that I was, yes, every day I felt I was dumb yesterday. That was the line that I used. That is the state of mind that you develop. You get joy, you learn, you make mistakes, you learn. It goes on like that. That is what I try to capture in this book. And let me tell you, there are 5 principles which I could discern from these experiences. One is Hetu Shuddhi, that purity of intent. I mentioned this at the time of stepping down at the Ahmedabad University, 2011. Sorry, 15. Hetu Shuddhi, that saves everyone. That keeps us on the right track. The second, Viveka Buddhi, our inner compass, what is right and what is wrong. Be always aware about it when you look at a situation. The third, Jnana Shakti. You look at the problem and you don't react emotionally. You analyze the problem. You see as to what implications there are of one or the other course. And then you take a reasoned decision. That is Jnana Shakti. You do always, but then you also have to work. That is the Karya Vritti. Perseverance, to be at it, to ensure that it happens. It does not slip out of your hand. That's what you do. So that is Karya Vritti. There is also another one which is very important, which is Vinamramati. I mentioned to you about every day I feel I was done yesterday. That humility. Remember, when Chandrachud became the Chief Justice, he mentioned 2 things. He said, it is my job to arrive at a judgment. But I want to arrive at a judgment without being judgmental. Very important. The second thing he mentioned was humility. In other words, Vinamramati is also required to be able to see the problem in its all facets in a correct way. So these are the 5 principles that one tries to adopt, dealing with all situations that life presents to you. Having followed these principles, or trying to follow these principles, there is something else which is missing. Kripa Drishti. You may do all this, and yet things may not happen. You require Kripa Drishti. That's what it is. Well, thank you very much for coming here on this occasion. I really appreciate. As I said earlier, you all have been a part of my life in some or the other way. I have been blessed by that, and I have enjoyed it. It has given me a deep sense of joy. Thank you.
Thank you. As we talked about Prafull Anubhai's journey, there is a small and special thing which I would like to mention before we end the function. Prafull Anubhai's interest in poetry was awakened by his very own friend, Shri Niranjan Bhai Bhagat, a very well-known poet of Gujarati literature. When he passed away in 2018, Prafull Anubhai composed a poem in his memory as a tribute. And the form is borrowed from his own poetry. Hun to bas farwa aave chu, kya kahin kashu karwa aave chu. I would like to recite a couple of lines of this poem. मैं तो बस मिलने आया हूँ, मनचाही बातें करने आया हूँ, साहित्य जन जीवन की चर्चा करने आया हूँ, मैं मेरा तुम्हारा मन खोलने आया हूँ, कहाँ कुछ पद पैसे के लिए आया हूँ, मैं तो बस मिलने आया. On this lovely note, I would like to thank each one of you to be present on this lovely Sunday morning and be a part of this function and gracing the occasion with your presence. And I would also like to thank our dignified guests and guest of honors, Sanjay Lalbhai. Thank you for coming on this Sunday morning. Thank you, Bimal Bhai. Thank you, Ashok Bhai. Thank you, Chandra ji. And thank you, Prafull Bhai, for being with us. And that's all. Thank you all. And we will meet soon with another book. That's the hope. That's the demand from Prafull Bhai. And thank you. So join us for Harti and so for some